Ladies and gentlemen, John O'Keefe, here on the Great Plains of the United States of America, in the beautiful land called Oklahoma. Land of Billy Coleman, land of the Great Dust Bowl, the Oklahoma Dust Bowl, land of sun, land of limited rain, land of a world that has learned how to survive without as much as we get over in the eastern woodlands. I will tell you that the ground and the plants and the vegetation has all but changed completely. Different kinds of trees, different kinds of animals, different sounds. The birds are totally different. And I'm only 20 hours away from Atlanta, Georgia right now. 20 hours of driving and exploring and discovering. And I am here today to read with you and to explore with you a little bit more about the area that we call Cedar Canyon, in a place that you could grab an atlas or your Google Maps and look up. It's called Alabaster Cave State Park. And I will tell you that one of the most amazing things about this place is that you're gonna see some very different reality. Do you notice all the trees down in the canyon? Do you notice that? Check that out. Look at all the trees. Those are mostly red cedars and junipers, I think, if I'm not mistaken. They might be a little bit too much, but that is Cedar Canyon. That means water has drained this entire space. They say that this was at one point a cave system, which there are a lot of caves and lots of bats, but do you notice all the white here? That is a mineral called gypsum. And gypsum makes up a lot of the ground here. How? I don't know. Figure that out. That's one of your big questions. But now I am in an area that I want to celebrate. Very different. Very, very different. You'll notice the big walls that drift down into the canyon. They say that this once was a cave, but then what happened was that as the ground dried out, yes, as the ground dried out, we'll talk more about that later. As the ground dried out, the gypsum couldn't hold the weight of the ground up top, but then it caved in. So check this out. Look at all of the flatland. Now I'm going to show you something else that you'll see as well. Notice the lack of trees. Why? Lack of water. There is not enough water in this area on a consistent basis that will sustain trees growing. So the plants get smaller. The grasses are what absolutely the buffalo fall in love with. And so one of the things that I'm going to share with you as I explore this area as the sun rises, about 10 o'clock in the morning here, 11 o'clock over in Atlanta. But one of the things that I'm going to share with you is that you'll see the water just runs off this area. Needs to find out where to go? Oh, the lowest point. And then it starts cutting itself off and heading on down. And then it gets down to the next spot. And then it finds its next lowest spot. And then it figures out how to go. So let me be like water and travel down this way, because today we're going to be reading a pretty awesome part of our book, and I want to get a nice comfortable spot to be able to read in. But also I might want to find a spot that's maybe a little bit shady as it gets a little bit busier down here and hotter and warmer, and then obviously you're not going to be able to see me very well. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the edge of Cedar Canyon. You can see the walkway. Yes, I can go further. Yes, you can see the cracks because of the weathering that's going on. Look at this. It goes down into that beautiful space. I guess it drops about 200 feet down into the canyon itself. But look at how much shade there is down there. Look at how beautiful all those trees are. Absolutely splendiferous. Isn't it beautiful? I'm loving this. So I'm so grateful to be here with you. I'm going to find a little spot over here, I think, so that I can find a little bit of a shade space and start doing my reading. So let's talk a little bit about where we are in regards to Matt and Etienne on this great adventure. So Matt and Etienne are now at a place where we know that Matt is looking for great respect. We know that Matt is looking for the opportunity to earn respect from Etienne. We know that Etienne is teaching Matt a whole bunch of stuff as we continue with this adventure. But it's not about academics and it's not about those kinds of things. What it is mostly, you know, it's basically about how to survive. And that is a really important piece, especially when you start finding your way into locations like this. How am I going to survive? That's a big question. So, welcome, welcome, welcome. It is time for Sign of the Beaver, chapters 13 and chapters 14. And I want to tell you how grateful I am to be sharing this time with you. So, as we get ourselves rolling, hopefully you still have your notebook. Hopefully you have written down on your glossary all the words. Let me see, what can I remember from yesterday? Piswat, good for nothing. Piswat, good for nothing. Kag, which was the porcupine. The wonderful, let's see, Nequenis, grandchild, right? And we have, I'm trying to think of if we have any other ones. Seba, tomorrow, right? So as we begin our adventure today, I'm going to say that we are under the shade of a beautiful, I think, Oklahoma redbud, which you're more than welcome to explore in regards to the different kinds of things. And let's get started. Let's find out what happens today. So, as we are on page 51, 52, let's get started. So, Sign of the Beaver by Elizabeth George Spear. And we are going to make sure that we get ourselves set up for some reading. All right, chapter 13. Welcome. Chapter 13. Wherever he went now, Matt watched for Indian signs. Sometimes he could not be sure whether a branch had broken in the wind or whether an animal had scratched a queer-shaped mark on a tree trunk. Once or twice, he was certain that he had discovered the sign of the beaver. It was a game he played with himself. That it was not a game to Etienne, he was still to learn. They were following a narrow trail one morning, this time to the east, when Etienne halted abruptly. "St," he warned. Off in the brush, Matt heard a very low, rasping breathing and a frantic scratching in the leaves. The noise stopped the moment that they stood still. Moving warily, the boys came upon a fox crouched low on the ground. It did not run, but lay snarling at them. And as he came nearer, Matt saw that its foreleg was caught fast. Caught fast. Strange. With a long stick, Etienne pushed aside the leaves, and Matt caught the glint of metal. "White man's trap," Etienne said. "How do you know?" Matt demanded. "Indians not use iron trap. Iron trap, bad." "You mean a white man set this trap?" Matt thought of Ben. "No. Some white man pay for bad Indian to hunt for him. White man not know how to hide trap so good." Etienne showed Matt how cleverly the trap had been hidden. The leaves and earth mounded up like an animal burrow, with 2 half-eaten fish heads concealed inside. The fox watched them, its teeth bared. The angry eyes made Matt uncomfortable. "We're in luck to find it first," he said, to cover its uneasiness. To cover his uneasiness. Etienne shook his head. "Not beaver hunting ground," he said. "Turtle clan hunt here." He pointed to a nearby tree. On the bark, Matt could just make out a crude scar that had shaped somewhat like a turtle. He was indignant. "We found it," he said. "You mean you're just going to leave it here because of a mark on a tree?" "Beaver people not take animal on turtle land," Etienne repeated. "We can't just let it suffer," Matt protested. "Suppose no one comes for days. Then Fox get away." "How can he get away?" bite off foot. Indeed, Matt could see now that the creature had already begun to gnaw its own flesh down to the bone. Leg men soon, Etienne added, noting Matt's troubled face. Fox have 3 legs besides. Wow, stop for a minute. So its leg is trapped in a steel jaw, right? It has a steel jaw trap. And so what is happening at this point is that Etienne's saying, the rules are the rules. We cannot touch this fox. And Matt doesn't understand it. He says, but this animal is having a trouble, is struggling right now. And Etienne says, we don't mess with turtles' land, right? That's a big deal. And in order to get away, the fox is willing to bite off its own leg. It's willing. And the way that Etienne says it, he says, fox has 3 other legs otherwise. Like, I know, that sounds so cruel, doesn't it? Doesn't it sound a little bit cruel around the edges? It sounds a little cruel to me. Indeed, Matt could see now that the creature had already gnawed its own flesh down to the bone. Leg men soon, Etienne nodded, noting Matt's troubled face. Fox have 3 leg beside. I don't like it, Matt insisted. He wondered why he minded so much. He had long ago got used to clubbing the small animals caught in his own snares. There was something about this fox that was different, though. His defiant eyes showed no trace of fear. He was struck by the bravery that could inflict such pain on itself in order to gain its freedom. Reluctantly, he followed Etienne back to the trail, leaving the miserable animal behind. It's a cruel way to trap an animal, Matt muttered. Worse than our snares. Eh-heh, Etienne agreed. Eh-heh, E-H-E, eh-heh. Sounds a lot like uh-huh, but eh-heh, Etienne agreed. My grandfather not allow beaver people to buy iron trap. Some Indian hunt like white man now. One time, many moose and beaver, plenty for all Indians and for white man too. But white man not hunt to eat, only for skin. Him pay Indian to get skin. So Indian use white man's trap. Matt could not find an answer. Tramping beside Etienne, he was confused and angry as well. He couldn't understand the Indian code that left an animal to suffer just because of a mark on a tree. And he was fed up with Etienne's scorn for white men. It was ridiculous to think that he and Etienne could ever really be friends. Sometimes he wished he could never see Etienne again. Wow, Matt's really confused, isn't he? He has a lot of mixed up feelings. Even at the same moment, he realized that this was not really true. Even though Etienne annoyed him, Matt was constantly goaded to keep trying to win this strange boy's respect. There it is again. Do you see it? He would lie awake at night, staring up at the chinks of starlight in the cabin roof, and make up stories in which he himself, not Etienne, was the hero. Sometimes he imagined how Etienne would be in some terrible danger, and he, Matt, would be brave and calm and come swiftly to the rescue. He would kill a bear unaided, or a panther, or fend off a rattlesnake about to strike. Or he would learn about an enemy band. I was holding up the thing. An enemy band of Indians sneaking through the forest to attack the place where Etienne was sleeping. And he would run through the woods and give the alarm in time. In the morning, he laughed at himself. So in the evenings, he's wishing for these kinds of things to happen. But then, in the morning, he laughed at himself for this childish daydreaming. There was little chance he would ever be a hero, and little chance, too, that Etienne would ever need his help. Matt knew that the Indian boy came day after day only because his grandfather sent him. For some reason, the old man had taken pity on this helpless white boy, and at the same time, he had shrewdly grasped at the chance for his own grandson to learn to read. If he suspected that Etienne had become the teacher instead, he would doubtless put a stop to the visits altogether. Matt knew that he ought to feel grateful for Etienne's teaching. Every day, Etienne taught him something new, a plant like an onion that he could drop into his cooking pot to make his stew more tasty, a weed with a small orange flower and a milky juice in its stem that took away the sting of insect bites or poison ivy, a plant with brownish flowers and roots bearing a string of nut-like bulbs that thickened his stew and made more nourishing. He had pointed out plants that Matt must never eat, no matter how hungry he might be. He had even shown Matt how to improvise a rain cape in a sudden rain by quickly punching a hole through the center of a wide strip of birch bark and making a cone of bark over his head. The only thing that Matt could teach him, Etienne was set against learning. For Etienne, the white man's signs on paper were Piswat, good for nothing. What else did he call Piswat? The dog, right? So he's saying that even learning this stuff is Piswat. Nevertheless, Matt noticed that in spite of himself, Etienne had learned something from the white boy. He was speaking the English tongue with much greater ease. Perhaps he was not aware himself how differently he spoke. He picked up new words very quickly. Sometimes he used them with that odd humor that Matt was beginning to recognize. Matt knew that Etienne was mocking when some of his own favorite expressions came solemnly out of the Indian's mouth. "Reckon so," Etienne would say. "Rain come soon, by golly." Sometimes he even took a fancy to a word out of Robinson Crusoe. He especially liked the sound of verily. Verily is an interesting word. V-E-R-I-L-Y. Verily. So verily is interesting. It's a mix of two very important words, very and truly, which is really weird. Verily is very truly, meaning I really mean it. I really, really, really mean it. But it's funny, isn't it, how Etienne is beginning to start making and using the language that Matt is teaching him. He's even come up and been able to learn some of the idioms, some of the easier things. Remember, we've talked about that, like by golly is not something that most people who are learning English will pick up. But that's something that Matt says quite often, and so therefore Etienne has learned it, because that's who his teacher is. In return, Matt liked to try out Indian words. They were not hard to understand, but impossible to get his tongue around. He didn't think he could ever quite get them right, but he could see that though it amused Etienne when he tried, it also pleased him. Chakwa, chakwa, C-H-A-K-W-A. Write it down, glossary. C-H-A-K-W-A, chakwa. This morning, chakwa. So now I'm teaching you chakwa about this work. Matt might say, chakwa, this morning, Matt might say, I chased the akagwa out of the corn patch. He wouldn't add that he had wasted an arrow and watched the porcupine waddle off unharmed. Perhaps, after all, these lessons hadn't been entirely wasted. That was a good chapter. I really liked it. What was the importance of that chapter? Sometimes sitting back at the end of it, we start recognizing what it is that we were supposed to learn. And that's an important part of reading. You have to step back and kind of say, okay, so what did this chapter give us? Because plain and simple, this chapter wouldn't be there unless it helps us understand something. Going back, this was basically a lot about how Matt is struggling with respecting the fact that he's friends with Etienne, as well as in other ways, frustrated with Etienne. The fact that he is learning from Etienne, and that the fact is that Etienne is learning from him. We also are reminded of the big important wish, which again is to gain the respect, right? To gain respect of Etienne. That is a huge dream that Matt has. So as we continue to read, we want to keep our brains out, and we want to continue to make sure that we're paying close attention to all those pieces of the puzzle. We want to keep our eyes out for when we get more information for these certain pieces. Sorry, the camera just doesn't seem to be fitting in as well with the grasses that you're sitting around. By the way, my hands, I wish I could share with you. All these plants right here have a beautiful smell to them. They're Indian grasses is what they're called, at least according to that. And it smells almost like pine. Oh, it's so nice. You just like, here, check it out. Like, so you take just a little bit and you crush it in your hands. And that's how you get the essence of the inside. Oh, so strong, so beautiful. It's like a mix between sage and oh, didn't want to drop you. Sorry, I'm just in love with being out here right now. Sometimes you just have to go out. Look at that. So cool. So many beautiful things. And reading this part about how Etienne's teaching Matt all these new ways to survive, I just think that for me, it's so real. It's so real sitting out here saying, this isn't the Eastern woodlands. How would a Native American have lived differently during this space, because this was Native American lands. This is the Plains tribes, and this is the Buffalo lands, and it's just, it's so different. It's so different. Anyway, sorry. Chapter 14. Robinson Crusoe had come to an end. Matt had skipped more than half of the book, choosing only the pages where there was plenty of action. Now he was sorry that it had not lasted longer. Etienne also seemed a little disappointed. "Too bad," he commented, copying one of Matt's frequent remarks. "I tell story to brothers. Every night I tell more story. They like." Delighted, Matt tried to picture the Indians sitting around the campfire at night, listening to Etienne tell the story of Robinson Crusoe. He would give a good deal to hear Etienne's version of it. Now suddenly he had an inspiration. "If they want more stories, I've got lots of them," he exclaimed. He took out his father's Bible from the shelf. Why hadn't he thought of this before? Why, there was Samson, David and Goliath, Joseph in his coat of many colors. "They're even better than Robinson Crusoe," he promised. It really was true. The ancient Bible stories were filled with great adventures, and they were told straight out in very simple language that didn't need skipping. He began with the story of Noah. How God had warned Noah that a great flood was coming. How Noah built the ark and took inside his family and 2 of every kind of animal. How they all lived in the ark safely while it rained for 40 days and 40 nights. How Noah sent a dove out 3 times, rule of 3. How Noah sent a dove out 3 times, and when it came back the 3rd time with a twig of olive in its beak, Noah knew the flood was over. Here, Matt looked up to see a grin on Etienne's face. "Do you see that? Listen to this. Beaver people tell story like that," he said. "Very old story. You want me tell?" Matt waited very curiously. "Very long time," Etienne began, scowling as he tried to translate from his own tongue. "Before animal was great rain. Water came all over the land. One Indian go to a very high hill, climb very high tree, rain many days. Water come up to feet of Indian, but no more. Glukskabe bring 3 ducks to Indian. 3 ducks. Glukskabe. It's capitalized. Glukskabe. I'm gonna bet that I'll bet you that that is the name of a god, some form of great spirit. Let's listen. Let's see if it works. Rain many days. Water come up to feet of Indian, but no more. Glukskabe bring 3 ducks to Indian. One day, he let 1 duck go. It fly away and not come back. Other day, he let other duck go, not come back. Then last duck come back with mud in mouth. Indian know water go down. When water all gone, he come down from tree. He make grass, make bird, make animal, make man and beaver. Man and beaver make all other Indians." "Golly," said Matt, "it's almost exactly like the Bible story. Where did the Indians get it?" Etienne shrugged. "Very old story. Indians take long time to tell. I not know white man's words." "You told it fine. But who is this whatever you called him?" "Glukskabe, mighty hunter. Come from north, very strong. He make wind blow, make thunder. He make all animal, make Indian." Matt was puzzled. He had heard that the Indians worshipped a great spirit. This Glukskabe did not sound like a great spirit. He sounded more like one of the heroes in the old folk tales his mother had told him when he was a child. He decided it would be impolite to ask any more. He wondered if the Indians had any more stories that were similar to his. And how could it be that here, out in the deep forest, that they had learned about a great flood? I'm going to stop there. This is the end of chapter 14. But I want to talk to you about a couple more things. But while I talk, I'm going to walk because I want to show you a little bit more of the canyon. So, one of the things that I think a lot about when I'm going on adventure is how do different groups of people have similar stories? Just like this. I have my friend Mag. Mag, you might be listening right now. I have my friend Mag, and she's from Brazil. She grew up for a really long time. She grew up until she was a young lady in Brazil. And then she and her family move to Georgia, and I have the fortune of meeting them, right? I mean, that's a big deal. But I haven't never sat down with her and said, tell me some of the stories that you were told when you were growing up. And I'll bet you that many of them probably are a lot like the ones that I would tell. So when I start thinking about stuff like that, it starts making me wonder a lot more about how similar so many people are. How many groups of people have similar frustrations, have similar stories, have similar ways to solve problems, and how much I have to learn from all of them. When I come to a new place, there's still plants, right? But they're different plants. They're made for the particular region that they're in. The story itself was really interesting. If you think about the two different creation stories or the stories, Matt has his story about Noah, about a great flood. But the thing that was really interesting is that he had the symbol of doves, which to us, in many ways, are signs of peace. He also said that something was brought back on the third time, an olive branch. And it's funny because if you look at a United States dollar, like a dollar bill, you will notice that the eagle is holding a branch in its claw, in its talons. And that is an olive branch. It's funny how we've taken our stories and added those into our other stories without even noticing. Have you ever noticed that the eagle is wearing or having an olive branch in its talon? What's in the other one? Have you checked it out? You probably should. Now think about why you would have an olive branch and that other thing. If you haven't ever checked it out, you probably should. So we have the story of Noah and the Great Flood in the European version, or the Christian version, or the Jewish version, because in the Jewish version in the Torah, it would have that as well. The Native Americans, coming from a very similar location, are from a very different part of the world. They have very different beliefs, but not so different that they don't have similar stories that talk about a once great flood, about how one person seems to somehow survive climbing a great tree, and what does he bring with him? Just happens to bring with him 3 ducks. It's funny, 3 ducks. First one goes out, nothing. Second one goes out, nothing. Third one brings back mud, showing that there's ground being uncovered. It's amazing. So now we have this great connection between the two of them, that they are sharing in similar ideas. And so as I leave this beautiful flat land and move a little bit further west, I don't know what I'm going to come to. I don't know what I'm going to discover in the time that I'm there. But I'm really excited to take the story. I'm excited to bring you. I'm excited to teach more. I'm excited to read more. I will tell you that chapter 15, when we start reading that, it truly begins, and I'm not kidding about this. It says, on the day of their greatest adventure, you got to show up again. I promise I will be downloading. I promise that I will be with you. I promise that I love you. I want to thank you for being here today. I want to thank you for joining me here in Alabaster State Park, or Alabaster Caverns in State Park, outside of Freedom, Oklahoma. Look it up. Check it out. Go out Highway 412 from Tahlequah, or Tahlequah. Yes, that's the town that Billy Coleman went and picked up his puppies with. I tried to find the depot. It doesn't exist anymore. I tried to find the school with the big slide. It doesn't exist anymore. I was praying that I'd be able to do that. The only thing that I could connect was the railroad and the Illinois River. That's all I could find. So that's why I didn't have a whole lot of video for it. So ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I'm gonna go off into this beautiful region. I'm gonna see what the Great Plains have to offer. Maybe I'll bring some videos back with you. And I can't thank you enough for being here. I love you. I love you. I love you. Now go off and have your great adventure. Now get out of here.